Shalom Aleichem, Moishi here, and welcome back to another Shabbat Shalom. Erev Yontif Shabbat Shalom, Yom Kippur coming up on Monday and Kol Nidra night on Sunday nights. What a time of reflection it is. And we're getting straight into the program. Three guests again today. And the first guest, we're Zooming. I'm Zooming again. I'm Zooming with a fellow presenter here at J-Air, Harry Graeve, co-presenter of The Right Stuff with Rabbi Pesach Steinberg. Harry, welcome to Shabbat Shalom.
Good afternoon, Morris. Thank you.
And before we start, Harry, let me mention the other two guests that I have on. We'll be talking with Sarah Bendetsky from Super Kitchen. She's got a bit of a Yom Kippur fundraiser, feeding the needy. And in the second hour, we're heading over to Israel as we always do, and speaking with Danny Hakim. Danny runs the Budo for Peace NGO, but is now involved with Nippers Australia. He's bringing, somebody else has brought Nippers Australia to Israel first, way back in 2015, but Danny and his brother are also getting involved and set up an organisation. And there was an item on the Channel 7 News last weekend, so I'll be catching up with Danny Hakim again. Harry Graeve. Harry is the co-presenter of The Right Stuff with Rabbi Pesach Steinberg. What is The Right Stuff all about, Harry?
The Right Stuff is really all about Rabbi Pesach and I saving money on therapy by being able to vent on a regular basis about the things that get under our skin and frustrate us. And yeah, we've seemed to have found ourselves a little bit of a following, and some people appreciate it, some people don't, but we have fun doing it.
9 o'clock on Thursdays nights. I've tuned in quite a few times. And the blessing that I have is that you occasionally brought in a bottle of whiskey and left it in the studio, and the mice have got at it by the time The Right Stuff has come up the following week. I've had a few shots, very much appreciated.
You're always welcome.
You're saving on therapy, are you?
Well, it's an opportunity for us to discuss publicly those things, as I say, that are frustrating us, to maybe work through some solutions, to invite other people to join in on the conversation, and so we can understand other people's perspectives on it. And it's not that Rabbi Pesach and I are always in agreement on issues, which makes for some very interesting discussions on air, especially when other people call in and get involved as well. Which
you have on a regular basis. 9 o'clock on Thursday evening, Thursday night. Harry, when you're not co-presenting The Right Stuff with Rabbi Steinberg, what do you do?
I work in driver training and road safety, which sort of takes in all sorts of different aspects. I don't work with learner drivers. I do a lot of corporate work, mining companies, 4x4 training, vehicle recovery, traffic management plans, things like that.
How did you get into that?
Bad luck and misfortune, like everybody else in the industry. Look, I'm half a petrol head as well. I've been mucking around with cars for years and years and years, and it just sort of seemed a natural kind of path to take. And over the years, the opportunities have presented themselves that have allowed me to work in all sorts of different fields that most people would never even think of as requiring that sort of skill set.
And you brought some of your driving prowess to the airwaves. You're driving your listeners mad.
Well, yes, unfortunately, really. my mother, Oliver Sholem, is no longer with us. So I've got to find someone to drive mental.
Got to hack a few people. Now, Harry, the main...
But it seems to be working.
It does, and you do a good job, the two of you. And look, Harry, the main reason I've asked you to join me on Shabbat Shalom, besides the fact that I always like to cross-promote other programs on the station, We've got elections coming up, council elections coming up 24th of November.
Yep.
And you've thrown your hat in with the Glen Eira Council for the Camden Ward.
Yes, indeed.
Why so? Why so?
Why? It all really started with the proposal to turn Inkerman Road into a haven for bicycles only. Not that I'm anti-cyclist. I own my own road bike and I'm a recreational rider. But it was an ill-conceived idea that was poorly designed. The negative impact on the residents, on any business owners trying to conduct business along there, on anybody simply trying to get through the municipality, were just going to be so great that I couldn't remain silent on it to start with. So I've been very vocal about it basically ever since it started. We've talked about it constantly on the show. I've actually interviewed Simon Zmood, who headed up the Save Inkerman campaign, a couple of times on the show. And after talking to a number of the councillors about it, not just from Camden Ward, it became abundantly clear to me that a lot of these councillors had an agenda to push, whether it was coming from their own misguided ideologies or whether it was because of party allegiances that they had and they were trying to prove themselves to the higher up to get pre-selection for a state or federal seat. It was a very big learning curve for me. And I just thought, you know what, there's no room for that in local government. We need independent residents looking after local council and people who are looking out for their friends, their family, their neighbours, not to be able to have some sort of legacy that's going to be celebrated by, a bunch of children who don't really understand the way the world works.
Good on you. I'm vehemently opposed to it, and I don't even live near it.
I'm not a resident. Yeah, I'm not a resident on Inkerman Road. I'm not a resident on any of the streets off Inkerman Road. But again, going back to my background, I could see the flaws in the proposal. Now, the cycling lobby aren't going to be very happy with me because I'm actually running one of my big platforms is to actually look at how we manage the traffic throughout the municipality. Now, in a lot of cases, all that's ever been done over the last number of years is we've had speed limits reduced on a whole number of roads. But that hasn't actually solved a congestion issue, nor has it removed any of the collision risks across the network. But I'm certainly not an advocate for putting bike paths in where they are going to be so measurably detrimental to the people living in those areas. And especially when we're talking about such a small proportion of the population who are actually riding bicycles.
And the idea is to encourage more people to ride bicycles, but they have no idea of, how many numbers may warm to that. No idea. They're going to spend a fortune on these things, a fortune on it.
And the best we could get from it was, well, we might double the number of cyclists over a 10-year period. So even not accounting for any sort of population growth, you're going to go from 2% to 4%. Now, it doesn't matter which way you measure that. In any sort of democratically run society, that has to be considered pandering to a very noisy minority. Now what I've proposed will reduce the collision risk for cyclists throughout the municipality if we're able to actually get some of these strategies up and running. But I'm certainly not going to be putting separated bicycle lanes, because the other thing that people need to keep in mind is that this was a pilot only. So there was always going to be a plan to roll this out further out. So we're not just talking Inkerman Road anymore. We're now talking Orong Road, Kooyong Road, Alma Road, Bamboo Road, Burren Road. Nearham Road, where
Any wide road,
decent road, remove all the parking, and they want more and more people living on top of each other in flats and apartments and everything else. Cars are becoming cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to buy in real terms. So it's reasonable to assume if you've got two adults living in an apartment that you've managed to get through council with one car spot available, there's going to be another car out in the street for every apartment that's in that block. So the whole idea of this council having acted in the best interests of the residents goes totally out the window and flies in the face of the mandate that they were given when they were elected.
Those
councillors that continually voted for this anyway. I mean, I know there were a number of councillors who voted against it, and we thank them very much. But for those who continued to vote for this, it was just an absolute disgrace for them to do so, because they acted in total disregard for the people they were trying to represent.
So this is your, definitely. This is your main platform. This is your major platform.
This was the one that convinced me to run for council. I watched with great bemusement at the fight that had to go on in Alston, for example, when they proposed to put two massive towers smack bang on top of, those quiet streets around Alston with the beautiful homes and all that sort of stuff. And then on top of that, put a supermarket on the ground floor, which would have required multiple semi-trailers to keep stock on the shelves for people to come and buy. It would have just destroyed that whole area. Now, the councillors acting on behalf of the residents should have immediately been able to see that that was just an inappropriate place to put that development. Now, if a proposal came through, I don't know, then, if we're talking where would you put it, if someone came to me and said, what, we've just bought the property on the corner of Glen Huntly and Nepean Highway, let's talk about it, let's work it through, because that's a much better place to put something that requires that number of vehicles to access the building, those types of vehicles to access the building, than down the end of, Selwyn Street in Alston.
Glen Huntly Road, yep.
You jam up St George's Road, you jam up Elizabeth Street, you'd never be able to get near the cinema. It was just, wrong, all the way through. And there are similar things going on in Gardenvale. So, the cycling path and the council not putting up the fight on behalf of residents, not even taking it further than one hearing at VCAT on behalf of the residents. That really annoyed me.
Yeah, good for you. I can see you've got the right background to address many of these issues. Interesting situation here. I've got the list of other candidates in Camden. It's about 11 or 12 people that I know. Sam Parasol, I've asked him to join me next week.
Yep.
Alan Grossbard, he's been on council previously. David Zinger, a fair income greenie lefty. You mentioned Simone Smood, and the others I'm not familiar with. Rachel Polsky, Jane Kozlacki, Ethan Milikowski, Jesse Dean, Jesse Dean Mansfield, Ricky Steckold, Joan Tiroli, Cameron Simpkins, and Nellie Kuroshima. Are you familiar with their platforms? Are there many others that are concerned about Save Inkerman Road?
Look, I can tell you Simone's mood is very much against the Inkerman Road proposal. As I say, she's headed up the Save Inkerman group from day one and done a huge amount of work with that. Sam Parasol, Alan Grossbard also against that particular proposal. I know Alan Grossbard has a bit of an anti-development around the Gardenvale area stance. David Zinger, he's a greenie. You want to take your chances with that. Zaymat Gazint.
Nicht bei mir. Niche,
Yeah.
not for me.
You know,
I reside in Camden.
yeah, well, hopefully I'll still get your vote after this, Morris.
Well, it's a toss-up between you and Sam Parasol,
Yeah.
because I've known Sam for 50-odd years, and he's very community-orientated and community-minded. Had a lot to do with setting up the Bendigo Bank here in Balaclava Road, which has done a great job. He'd do a good job. And he was an old schmatologist like myself. Interesting fact here, you might have scared off a number of the existing councillors. Mary Delahunty, Jamie Hines, Joel Silver, Dan Strait. They're not running for re-election.
Well, none of the incumbents in Camden are running this time around.
That's really interesting.
Having opened up the field, Mary Delahunty, with no apologies at all. I'm not going to be sad to see that woman go.
No loss. No loss.
I was at a council meeting when she happily stood up and declared that, I'm a self-professed socialist. So, here's a woman that obviously believes it's okay to take your stuff that you've worked hard for and give it to people that haven't worked for it at all. Joel Silver was very good to work with. Jamie Hyams, I've known for a number of years through my involvement with the Scouts. And look, on most counts, a really good, reasonable guy to deal with. Although I didn't think so when it came to the Inkerman Road proposal. And look, at the end of the day, my biggest concern is that we end up with people on council who will act for the residents and act on the feedback that they get from the residents. So I think the one good thing with Camden Ward is that there are a number, I think out of the 13 candidates, 8 are independents. And, I think look, whether I win, whether I don't win, I'm not going to cry myself to sleep if I get the call in early November when we finally get the results and they say, hey, Harry, thanks for running, but you didn't get a seat. I'm not going to cry myself to sleep. But if we end up with a lot of these party acolytes on council, I think that could be a very dangerous thing.
Definitely. And I've still got a gripe against Mary Delahunty and Joel Silver. They voted to not allow the flower stand to continue trading in the park. An absurdity. The little girl standing there, rain, hail or shine, selling a few flowers that have been there for 40 years, not harming anybody.
There's a bit more to that story, though.
Oh, I know the thing behind it.
There's a bit more to that story.
Crown land and all that sort of stuff and whatever. Anyway,
it was more about, from what I understand, after talking with David Southwick, who's the local state MP, she hadn't had a lease for a number of years and wasn't prepared to sign another one.
I think she was. There was no lease. I think it was assigned to her without a lease, without notifying the council. But never mind. It should have been there. It was Delahunty was a bigger gripe to do with.
It should have been more of an effort.
The Caulfield Racecourse, the tabaret there, and it's on Crown land there. It's paying nothing, and this was a start to sort of get. Anyway, it doesn't matter. All right. So, how are you campaigning?
How am I?
I haven't seen any of your boards up yet. I've seen. I have seen a few of the others. The other councils.
There's a few signs up. I do keep on asking through my Facebook page if anyone's interested. Harry Graeve for Camden Ward. If I can have a lend of their fence or their front yard, I'm surprised there aren't more people volunteering to put my head on a stick. Especially after doing the radio show for the time that we have, so there's a bit of online marketing going on. I'm at the moment finalising a brochure to do a letterbox drop. Unfortunately, due to the restrictions that we're currently living under, I can't knock on people's door or set up a stand outside one of the supermarkets, or let people know, look, I'm going to be sitting at this cafe from whatever time, come and have a chat with me, let me know what your concerns are. So with none of the incumbents running and all these restrictions, it's going to be very interesting to see how people actually vote. As I say, my main concern is that we get good quality independents in, whether it's myself or not. I'm not too concerned, because even if I'm not, that's still not going to stop me from sharing my ideas with the new council on how we can actually solve some of these issues that are facing us.
Kalakabot to you. Might I suggest you get a few of your pamphlets and go for a walk around Caulfield Park? There's plenty of people at the park these days.
Yeah,
get your exercise and your lectioneering at the same time.
Yep.
Any truth to the fact that I heard that Herschel Landis, proponent of the bike street in Inkerman Road, is going to open up his house to everyone, and they can stop there and get free coffee and freshen up if they've got a bike there 24/7.
Yeah, I think it'd be a great idea if you actually put his address up on your web page or the Facebook page that you've got, or even if you just want to announce it here and now. I'm sure Herschel would love to host his fellow cyclists, rain, hail or shine. Maybe if I'm given the privilege of serving the people of Camden Ward and the City of Glen Eira, we might just put a whole bunch of bicycle racks just outside his house, just to make sure no cars can park out the front of his house, that it's always accessible for cyclists.
I'm surprised he's not running for council. He has a history of running for council in Richmond. Anyway, he's an old mate of mine. Harry, I want to thank you.
Of David Zinger or the Reason Party candidate doing deals behind the scenes somehow. We don't know.
Knows? Anyway, I wish you luck. Thanks for joining me on Shabbat Shalom. I like your platform. As I said, I'll toss a coin between you and Sam Parasol.
Look, I
do wish you luck.
Sam for many, many years. So put a number one against Sam, a number two against me, and we'll remain friends. Exactly.
And it'll be interesting how you conduct your affairs on the right stuff if you get elected. You might have to tone things down a little bit.
Oh, never. Mate, terrific. The municipality will have to harden up a little.
Terrific. Harry Graeve, running for council in the ward of Camden in Glen Eira. Kolakabod to you. Take my hat off to you and keep up your great work. Shana Tova, Umetuka, and we'll speak soon. Give me some of those pamphlets. I'll hand them out. Actually, put together a little promo, and I might play it. I'll play it on Shabbat Shalom.
I can do that.
I'm serious. All right, Harry, stay well and give my regards to Rabbi Steinberg.
Shall do.
Terrific. Stay well.